Alrighty, so I'm going to say something that might sting a bit. Yeah, but it'll make sense by the end. So just want to start off by saying that our parents, and I'm not speaking for all the parents. There were a lot of bad ones. There were a lot of okay ones. There were a lot of great ones. It's all over the place. So I'm not trying to generalize here, but our parents gave us what they could, most of them, right? They gave us food to eat. They put a roof over our heads. They gave us clothes. We weren't roaming around naked, and maybe some love and attention, right? Unless maybe you were a latchkey kid or something. That's more of a Gen X thing, but I did have some friends that were latchkey kids. They were pretty good kids for the most part. They didn't cause any trouble really. They were actually pretty mature. But yeah, so I'm a millennial. I was born in 1985. I was a kid of the 90s. Was a teenager in the late 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, class of '03. Woo woo. Go Eagles. So if that's you too, then the world that we inherited was changing fast, right? It was changing. We've seen life before the internet and before social media, and life after. So, and that's a whole other video I can do in and of itself. But yeah, so we inherited this life that was changing faster than people raising us could adapt to, right? And if you're Gen Z listening here, you man, you came at an age just inside that acceleration, just the same storm, but a different boat, if you will. So, but I mean, here's the truth. So, a lot of us were raised to be. I've talked about this before. To be safe and quiet and compliant and productive. Members of society, and somehow still unsure of ourselves. I remember stressing out as a child because I didn't know how to write out a checkbook, like fill one out and do all that stuff. I was 12 years old and I saw my dad do that at the supermarket, and I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to learn how to do that? If I can't learn how to do that, then what am I going to do? So I was dreading being an adult already at the age of 12, just seeing my dad deal with checks. So little did I know that those would be obsolete, but you never know. So, but yeah, I mean, we were trained to perform, but not to become. We were told what not to be, but rarely shown what to become. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to just look at the gaps that our parents left, and we're going to just call them out for what they are. We're going to break down how those gaps shaped us, and we're going to get to the point about what it actually takes to stand as a man today, right? So yeah, no fluff or theory stuff. No theory for the sake of theory. Just what's real, what's missing, and what has to change. And yeah, as Marcus Aurelius put it, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. That's the aim of this conversation. So if your parents never prepared you to be a man, this is where we begin. So let's put our generation in context. So a lot of us were raised in homes that were shaped by stress, long work hours, divorce, economic uncertainty, or, parents who were physically present but emotionally exhausted and not so present. Some of you out there had strong fathers, and many had fathers who were absent, distracted, or unsure of themselves, right? So, I mean, and some had mothers who carried everything and had nothing left to give. And most had schools that taught us to obviously to sit still and to memorize and to take tests, skills that rarely translate into deeper work of becoming, right? School was not helpful for us whatsoever. But yeah, so meanwhile, culture sent very mixed signals. Sorry, I got kind of a cold. So in the 90s and then the early 2000s, masculinity was pulled in two directions, really. On one hand, we were told to be sensitive and to be open up, right? And then on the other hand, we were mocked if we actually showed weakness. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. So success was measured in external validation. So through grades and trophies and money and social approval. Although we were the generation of participation trophies. So those really lost their value quick. But yeah, along with the greenback, the Federal Reserve was printing out participation trophies. JK. But so yeah, basically, the social approval, money, trophies, grades, whatever. So while the internal qualities of manhood, like steadiness and patience and discipline, that stuff just went unspoken, unheard of. I did not hear anything about really any of that stuff growing up that I can recall. So not to say that my dad may not have, discipline maybe, but I don't know. It's really hard to say. But, Gen X, or not Gen Z, your experience has been different and the same. You were raised 100% online. You've seen everything: success, failure, wealth, drama, just on repeat, just day after day after day after day after day, right? Information is endless. Guidance is scarce, right? You can get 100 opinions in an hour and still feel alone. But yeah, here's a sentence that frees a lot of men. Our parents couldn't give what they didn't have. They just couldn't. They couldn't give what they didn't have. You can't pour into somebody if you don't have anything to pour into them. So, as Carl Jung observed, the unlived life of the parent weighs heavily on the child. And that's not coming from a place of condemnation. It's an explanation. They did what they knew. They pass along what they had, whatever it was. Sometimes that was love without any form of leadership, or sometimes it was provision without their presence and attention, and sometimes it was just rules with no reason, just because I said so, right? Got that a lot. But yeah, when you accept that, something powerful happens. Blame loosens its grip. Responsibility becomes possible. Growth starts where resentment ends. But yeah, if it's any consolation, if you were never prepared, that doesn't mean that you're broken. You were never prepared. You were simply under mentored. And the good news is, mentorship is a path you can step onto at any age. Any age, really. And it's by choosing principles and practicing them until they shape you or reshape you, right? So, let's name that manhood, or let's name what manhood has historically meant at a basic level, which you may all know: to provide, to protect, to guide. Not as a costume to wear, but as a character. Providing isn't just money. It's creating stability, it's creating options and forward motion, right? Protecting isn't just, physical strength. It's making the environment safer than you found it. And that is, that goes for physically, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. So, and when I say guiding, I don't mean controlling. So guiding isn't control, it's direction. It's the ability to say, this is the way we're going, and then walk first, right? So what happened to that model? What happened to it? Well, a few things. So, and none of them are simple. So work moved from hands to screens. We've seen that. Fathers and sons, they stopped working side by side. Rites of passage faded away. Community just thinned out. The pace of the pace of change just outstripped tradition's ability to translate, I would say. And in many places, we learned more about how to not offend than how to lead with courage and confidence and compassion. Add to that a cultural mood that made many men feel like they had to choose between being strong and being kind, between having boundaries and having a heart. It's a false choice. You need both. Strength without goodness is dangerous. Goodness without strength is fragile. It's fragility. So here's a reframe for you that really simplifies everything. So manhood isn't a performance. It's a process. It's not about appearing solid. It's about becoming solid over time by taking on responsibility and building competence and forming character. You go from being what is it? It's like the hierarchy of competence. You go from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent to consciously competent to unconsciously competent, ends up becoming second nature. You get it. I may have scuffed it how it goes, but you get the gist. But yeah, so I mean, the Stoics, I would say, remind us of this path. So they didn't talk about manhood as a costume. They talked about it as a practice. Was it Epictetus? That name is really hard to say. Epictetus taught us self command, and then Seneca taught wise preparation, and then Marcus Aurelius taught disciplined action. I don't know who decided to name Epictetus, but that is a horrible name. Come on, bro, you're not doing me any favors. But anyways, so they didn't promise easy days. They promised meaningful ones. What is that? Wasn't there a Bruce Lee quote like "Don't pray for an easy life" or something? I don't know, something like that. Maybe that was Bruce Lee. But yeah, I mean, just you want to have meaningful days, and they're not always going to be easy. You can have those for sure, but they're not promised. When they come, take advantage of them because there aren't that many when you get older. But yeah, I mean, and that brings us to the real issue. Most of us were told what not to be. Don't be selfish, right? Don't be controlling. Don't be toxic. But we weren't given a picture of what to grow into. Like I said in my previous video, we weren't given a blueprint, man. We weren't given a blueprint. But that's what we're doing here. So, we weren't given a picture of what to grow into. That's what we're doing here. So before we talk about building, we have to talk about healing, because, cracks in the foundation show up in the walls. I mean, there's the father wound. Maybe he left. Maybe he stayed, but stayed silent. Maybe he had a temper, threw hands at you. Maybe he, couldn't teach what he never learned, That wound often shows up as longing for approval, anger, that flashes or a drift into passivity. If you recognize yourself in if you recognize yourself in any of that, I mean, you're not alone, dude. You're not alone. Trust me. But then, yeah, what I've talked about before also is the mother wound. Maybe she carried everything and began to carry you too, your moods, your choices, your future. Maybe she was a helicopter mom, just overprotecting, always swooped in. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like overprotection can feel like love, and it is, but it can train a boy to wait for permission instead of taking initiative. So I mean, if you love your mom and still feel stuck, I mean, this might be why. But yeah, and then I also talk about those other mothers, the ones that just didn't even like you, because a lot of you in the comment section, you told me your stories about how your mother was, narcissistic or just, treated you like the kid called it, just horrible. So, but yeah, I mean, but then there's the culture wound as well. When the men you see are untrustworthy, the men you try to become are undefined. If your examples were either absent or distorted, then your path was always going to be foggy. And of course you hesitated. Of course you overcorrected. And you tried on identities that didn't fit. Right? So what heals these wounds? Well, I'd say labeling. First it's honest naming. You can't fix what you won't face. Second, meaning. Need meaning. As Nietzsche wrote, he who has a why can bear almost any how. I've quoted that a few times. Meaning turns pain into purpose. And then third is practice. Not just insight, but action. Small wins, consistently repeated. That changes a life. And here's the real inventory. So the real inventory is, where am I waiting for someone to tell me I'm enough? Where am I delaying a necessary decision because I want perfect certainty? Where am I pretending not to know what I already know? I'd say those three questions have freed thousands of men because they expose the hidden contracts we made with our past. I'll move when someone validates me. I'll act when the risk is zero. I'll stay confused because clarity would force me to choose. Bruh, you don't need permission to become a man. You'll never have perfect certainty. Clarity comes from movement. Life is movement. But yeah, I mean, here's the simplest, sharpest, most practical definition I can give. Manhood is forged in 4 fires. Those 4 fires are responsibility, resilience, discipline, and direction. And if you remember nothing else, remember those 4 words. Responsibility says, this is mine to carry, not because it's glamorous, not because it's fair, but because it's needed. It starts small and grows. Honor your word. Show up when you said you would. Pay what you owe. Apologize when you miss. Repair what you break. It's not just old-fashioned. That's foundational. It's foundational. So I mean, ask yourself, what part of this is mine? Say it when you want to blame. Say it when you want to hide, and then act. What part of this is mine? And then, of course, resilience. Resilience isn't pretending things don't hurt. It's simply choosing to heal and continue. It's something you build like a muscle, stress, recovery, repeat, fail, learn, move forward, so on and so forth. Don't mistake failure for a verdict. It's feedback. That's all it is. Keep going, man. Discipline. So discipline is what keeps potential from leaking away. It's focus. It's self-command. It's the ability to delay gratification. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. Knowing what's yours to command and what isn't, and refusing to waste your life on what you can't control. That's really easy to get trapped into, is focusing on things that are outside of your control. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Lastly, direction. Direction is not a fantasy. It's a declared path. Pick a lane, commit to that lane, review and adjust, but don't drift. And here we go again. Epictetus said, should just call this guy Epic. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. So decide, then do. That rhythm will change your life. Thanks, Epic. Appreciate it, dude. But yeah, I mean, as you live those four, measure yourself by 3 words: truth, courage, compassion. Tell the truth, start with yourself, act with courage, starting, small, and then practice compassion, starting close to home. That compassion keeps strength from becoming harsh and kindness from becoming weak. Now, Gen Z, this part is for you, though it does apply to all of us. You grew up with infinite input and very little initiation. You don't need more noise. You need clarity and honesty. So understand this. No one is coming to save you, homie. But you're not alone, okay? You're not alone, but no one else can carry the weight for you. Sorry, bro. Stop letting the internet raise you, dude. Use it as a tool, not as a parent. Start curating your inputs. Cut what wastes you. Just cut it out. Invest in what builds you, whatever that is. You know what that is better than I do. Then step outside and live in the real freaking world, bro. And become useful. You got to become useful. It's fulfilling to be useful. It's in our biology, it's in our nature. And I don't mean in some abstract sense. In reality, you do need to learn skills. Develop competence. Speak clearly, keep your words, or keep your word. Keep all your words, but keep your word, man. Don't be a flake. People don't like flakes. Not a fan of those. But yeah, men who are useful never run out of purpose. So I know that sounds kind of matrixy. It is in a way. But I mean, to a certain extent, there's only so much you can do. Because there's just too many people that they're just chilling. So what are we left with? Just to talk about it on the internet for now, But we just, we need to unite and stand up and change this world. It's dismal, but, we manage. Anyways, I digress. I'm going off on a tangent here, but if you don't have a mentor, they're hard to come by. Like I said, the male role model is a dying breed. So what do? You become the kind of man a mentor would want to invest in. You show effort and humility and consistency, especially consistency. I would say that's how guidance finds you. It's out there, but it's an attention economy, and you have to put forth, like I said, a lot of effort and humility and consistency. It's all about just consistency. and give yourself room to grow. You don't need to have everything figured out by 25. You need a path and the will to walk it. That's something that I did not have when I was 25. Was still a space cadet. So, but yeah, let's land this plane, shall we? So if your parents never prepared you to be a man, that's not an excuse. That it's a reality, yeah, and it leaves you with a choice. Now, choice is, you can live bitter, right? That's an option. You can do that. Don't recommend it, but you can do it. Or you can live responsible. And you can keep drifting. You can do some Tokyo Drift. Watched that yesterday. Horrible movie. So bad. Okay, I couldn't finish it. It was so cheesy. There's like one scene where the two dudes are so close. It looks like he's supposed to be intimidating him, but he looks like he's gonna kiss him. So it just ruins the whole scene. It's just like, dude, if you could have just backed up maybe like 3 inches, would have changed the whole dynamic. But yeah, look like they're about to just get it on in the parking garage. But yeah, anyways, sorry. So yeah, so you can keep drifting, or you can set direction. Do east, do west, wherever. Find a direction and just stick to it. And then you can also collapse when life hits, and it's gonna hit. Pacow. Or you can stand back up, right? You can stay collapsed, or you can just brush yourself off, stand back up, and do it all over again. So the more you do that, the easier it is, and the less you get knocked down. Hence, you become more competent. So, but yeah, no one's going to hand you a script. No one's going to carry it for you. This is on you, dude. Marcus Aurelius was right. Don't waste time arguing what a good man should be. Become one. So yeah, for all you dudes out there, I mean, if this cuts through the noise for you, subscribe. There's more where that came from. Share it with someone who needs it. There's plenty of dudes out there that need it. Drop a comment. Tell me your story. What's going on in your life? I read the comments as best I can. There are a lot of them usually, so I can't get to all of them, but I try to read as many as possible. And yeah, so that's all I got. I'm hungry. That's it, man. But yeah, no excuses, no waiting. Start now. Just pick a path and do those things, and rewatch this if you forgot what those are. Okay. You can check down in the video description. I can't promise you that I will have all of those written down. So these cliff notes are not going to save your ass. Okay. So feel free to rewatch the video as many times as needed. And I'm going to go grab a burrito. All right. Peace out, guys.